Sometimes when we're taking product shots or we're creating mock-ups on our own with photography, we need to retouch our background. Sometimes we don't have enough space. Maybe you're photographing in front of a wall and it's not covering the full background, but we want this background to be even and have no distractions so that we're paying attention to the product. Back in the day, we would have to create a mask and draw manually around all of these objects to select them. These days, we have artificial intelligence to help us select subjects and objects in Photoshop and make our process go much faster. Now, the first thing I want to do is I want to retouch and get rid of all of this background, all these distracting elements. I only had enough paper to roll halfway up the chair, and I had to get further away with the camera. And so I ended up with this situation. The other thing I would like to do is change this background from gray to maybe red so it feels more in the spirit of the holidays for this product. First thing I'm going to do is just copy my background. I like to do this so I always have my original photo hidden and saved back there in case I mess something up. It happens. Now, what I want to do is I want to make a mask and actually only select this area around here. And I can be sloppy around this part, but around the edge of the bag, it's got to be tight. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that I'm selecting the area that I want to fill in with background. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to start with the object selection tool. If you go here to object selection tool, you can simply roll over and you can see it immediately hides the object that you want selected. You can see it finds each object. So I'm going to just click to select it and you can see the marching ants. So that means it's selected. And I'm just going to select these chocolates by holding shift just to kind of protect the integrity of all the product here. So now I have this object selected here. What I actually want to do is select the background because that's what I want to fill in. So I'm going to do Shift Command I, and it's going to reverse these marching ants. What you're going to see are marching ants around the edge and in the same place because now this space between the background space is going to be what's selected. So Shift Command I. Now you can say this background selected. But what I really want is only to select this top portion of the background and this little edge over here. So I want to deselect the rest of this down here. And I'm going to switch to my lasso tool. And what I'm going to do is hold Option. And what Option will do is you can see the little negative pops up next to the lasso. So that means that I'm going to deselect. So I'm going to hold Option down. And I'm just going to go here, down to here, up into here. Just select all of this area, and I'm going to deselect all of that. So now you can see I only have this top portion selected here. Well, back in the day, we would use the clone tool, and we would have to use the clone tool here, the brush, click Option to where we want to clone, and then we'd have to clone this all in up here. And you can see it's a process. You kind of have to go back over and re-click and blend it in and all that stuff. Command Z to undo this. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go to Generative Fill and just click it. And I'm not going to type in any description. I'm just going to click Generate. And this is going to fill in the background for me. You can see here it's creating variations. All right. I'm going to leave this properties window so we can see. See, that looks pretty seamless and nice and even. Now there's a couple variations here. You can see this one gives us a little bit more depth in there. It kind of does something to the top of the bag, though, in this one, which I don't like. I think this first one or this last one will work. This last one looks good. They both look good. This one's a little cleaner at the top. So, but this one has a little bit more depth. So I think I'm actually gonna go with number 3, and I'm just gonna keep that for my background. And what I'm gonna do in this case is put my properties back in this little window, and I'm going to grab both of these now and hold Shift and press Command E, and that's gonna merge them into one image. See, so now everything's just in this one image. Now what I want to do is color this background red. There's a few different ways I can do it. I'm just going to do it by creating a new layer. I'm going to fill my layer with black. All right, I have my layer selected here with black. I'm going to hide the layer for the moment. I'm going to go to this layer and I'm going to use my object selection tool again, or I can use select subject. Let's try this. And you can see it selected everything that it feels is a subject. So that made it even quicker. What I'm going to do now is press Shift Command I to inverse the selection. So now this background selected. I'm going to go back to my black layer and I'm going to click Mask. So now you can see it masked out the background and only my layer in black is around here. I'm going to switch this layer to multiply and I'm going to change the opacity to maybe about 90% around there. All right. Next thing I want to do is colorize this layer. So I'm going to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Hue Saturation. Click OK. What I want to do is make sure that this hue saturation is only affecting the layer directly below it. If I adjust the hue and saturation now, it's going to affect all layers below it, including my image here. So if I adjust it, you can see it's changing the color of the bag and everything, and we don't want that. All right, we want this to only affect the layer directly below it. So what I'm going to do is hold Option, and you can see this little arrow pops up. And when I click right between these two layers, you can see an arrow pops up here. And this means it's only affecting the layer directly below it. So now when I adjust the color, it's only going to affect the black layer. Well, we need to make this black layer a little bit lighter and red. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select Colorize. I'm going to pull my saturation up. And I'm going to pull my lightness down. And you can see I'm maintaining those shadows, which gives a depth. So I can bring some more red into this. I can adjust this to be any color I want now. All right, so that's how you can bring a color background into this. Let's take a look at it here. And that looks pretty good. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. And now just to export it, first thing I want to do is just save my Photoshop file. So I'm going to click Save As. And I'm going to save this. I'm going to change the name to Chocolate de Mesa. And I'm going to leave this and save this as a PSD. So I have all of my layers. Okay. So now you can see here's the name of my file, PSD. The reason why I always save my PSD file is, let's say I submit this to the client and they say, oh, we'd rather have the background be light blue to match the flying donkey. I can easily come in and change this background to be light blue, and I can export the file right away. So that's the advantage of always saving your Photoshop file. It's your source file, it's editable, and now I can mint a file out of here by going export, quick export as PNG, and it's going to make an exact copy of this file, but as a flattened PNG. So now I have my PSD file, which I can go back and edit at any time, and I can always re-export a PNG or a JPEG or whatever file I need directly from this file. You always want to export from your source file so that you're maintaining as high quality of resolution without any degradation to your image. So I wouldn't want to open my PNG and then export another file from that. I would always want to come back to my PSD and export from here. All right, I hope you have a little bit of insight now onto doing some easy retouching of backgrounds in Photoshop and making some small adjustments to color for your mockups.